actually happening. Seriously. Really. I'm not kidding this time. We're going to do it. We're going to talk about it. I got my panel with me tonight. First up, we got a man making his YouTube debut. Mr. Cthulouie. I can't do it. I can't do the Cthulouie. I'm glad you just put Louie on here, so I can't.
That's why I did it.
I can't do the Cthulouie.
just sneeze. Just go. Cthulhu.
Yes, I can do it. Welcome.
Thank you.
Glad that you are making your debut with us talking Usagi only like 3 months after you thought you were going to make it. So,
you know what? I can move things around anytime.
There you go. Are you excited to talk about little Usagi tonight?
As you said, this was a couple months ago, so that's when I read it, and I have 3 months of comics I've read since.
Yeah, so Unruly is still skeptical that the show is happening.
Actually,
also got comics. Alec, what is going on, my friend?
I just got a text. Can we reschedule?
Sure.
I'm just kidding.
And last, our straggler, because he's just a busy man. He had other shows tonight. He's rescheduling around us. I already got yelled at because I interrupted when it was supposed to be by his co-host in his previous show. Jimmy, what is going on, man?
I'm here, man. I'm here.
You're here. We're all here. That is awesome.
But I came just to try to pronounce Cthulouie.
Yeah, I can't do it. I have a block.
Is it a soft C like Cthulouie?
Yeah.
Cthulhu, but
I know.
Cthulouie.
Cthulouie.
Yeah, Cthulouie. Can't do it.
Cthulouie.
Yeah, something like that. All right, let's check out this chat. We had some people waiting on us, tailgating. Unruly.
Nobody's waiting. Oh, wait. Simeon's waiting.
Gorvidal. He was threatening us with his attorneys because they were sensing another postponement.
I mean, they have been waiting for what, 3 months?
Yeah, it was April.
Yeah, they've been stuck in the chat this whole time.
No, it hasn't.
It was the original schedule was the end of April. So yeah.
So 2 months.
Nobody's paying attention to that. Except
nobody cares.
This is the first time we've scheduled this show.
That's right. This is actually the first time we've tried to do this.
Prove me wrong.
Hey, Louie, what's going on? GT, what is happening? What? No smiley whale? No, that's a one-time single occurrence.
That was awesome.
John
they are able to capture a smiley face on a card. It had to have been during. Nola's coming.
The funny thing is that huge props to J-Hood, because the hours of footage he must have had to go through to find a picture of me smiling to take a screenshot of. That's dedication.
He's usually like this.
Yeah, if he does, there's a lot of he does that a lot when he does laugh.
Brushes the mustache down so to cover it.
Yeah, my mustache is kind of trimmed right now, so you can
actually kind of see it.
There it is.
Yeah. We got the rare appearance. I like it. And we might get it more tonight because I believe he actually likes this series. So
fun stuff.
He might not just dump on this book the whole night. We'll see.
Yeah. It's not all dark and twisty like White Whale.
Yeah. All right. So
grumpy man.
Introduction. First thing I want is just how you guys got introduced to Usagi Yojimbo originally. Louis, was this the first time you had read this?
It is the first time I read it. So
is it the first time you'd read any Usagi?
Yeah. So in my mind, I just started kind of reading independent stuff maybe a year or two ago. And up until then, I just always thought this was a TMNT character because I'd seen the crossover covers and stuff like that.
Right.
And then I saw you guys talking about maybe reading it, and I was like, oh, this is its own thing? I just no idea. When I saw Usagi Yojimbo comics, I just thought it was a spin-off of a TMNT character.
Nice.
I had no idea.
Alec, I know you have a pretty big book of this. What was your introduction?
Not the book.
Not the book.
Yeah, I do have a nice 9.6 Usagi 1.
Nice.
Which
Me too.
Which that book has exploded recently, but Albedo is just
like one short year ago that was like $150 book.
Yeah, I bought it at a really good price.
Yeah.
2 years ago maybe, and it now good luck buying that for even close to that.
Yeah,
I mean, like everything else, really. But I mean, definitely TMNT was the first exposure I had to the character. But I thought he was so cool that, like, later on when I was an older teen, I kind of figured out what it was from and started looking into it a little bit more. So
nice.
And I've met Stan Sakai a couple times, and he could not be more pleasant.
Oh, he's such a great guy.
He is an ambassador for the medium and just a all-around pleasant human being.
Jimmy, what about you? What was your introduction to this?
So, well, I'm a lot older than the rest of you.
Not a lot, but
I read it off the newsstand.
Oh, nice.
So this actually chronicles the first 3 volume, second, third, and fourth issues of Albedo, and then the culmination of a number of backup stories in a magazine called Critters.
Yeah.
So I actually got into Usagi shortly after that. So I want to say it was like 89, and I was like 14, 15 years old, and I was reading Boris the Bear. Which was like my introduction to funny animal stuff, and
Rob Liefeld.
Yeah, what's that?
And Rob Liefeld.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, the one thing he did of Boris the Bear with actual sized feet, and radioactive was it teenage radioactive mutant hamsters?
Black belt hamsters.
Black belt mutant hamsters. So that was, another one of those good fun indies, from the early days, right? So I'm an indie lover from way back, not as much the Image people, but definitely. So I got into that train a long time ago, and I loved Usagi Yojimbo. So much fun. I'm a huge fan of feudal Japan and the Bushido Code and samurais. Grew up with that, with the Throne of Blood and Yojimbo and those movies. You watch them on like the TMC channel, whatever it is. Yeah, Turner Classic Movie TCM
Kurosawa stuff.
Yeah, the Kira Kurosawa. Some of my favorite books from when I was in high school that I read was Lone Wolf and Cub. So these were like very near and dear to me. So when JP had pitched Usagi Yojimbo, I was like, I'm in. I'm so into that because I love these stories. They're such fun stories.
So I'm kind of a little bit of closer to Louis than you guys but I did know about it. I had just never gotten around to reading it. I'd never read it. Like, I knew that it was its own thing. I knew that the crossovers were with TMNT were just kind of crossovers, but I never read it. But
vague crossovers.
Yeah. And
displaced time crossovers because TMNT is like modern New York, and it's like 400 years in the past. So.
Yeah, that's never stopped comic books.
Right? Yeah. You don't need Kang for that.
No. But for me, I, like Jimmy, love those kind of stories. Like, one of my favorite mangas of all time is like Ronin Kenshin. Like the lone samurai, the Ronin.
Yeah.
Love those kind of stories. And always wanted to read it, never got around to it. So I really wanted to start at the beginning, which I'm glad we did. I don't know what we'll read going forward. We'll discuss that maybe at the end, but I really want to start at the beginning, and I really enjoyed this. What were your guys' thoughts? This time we'll go back the other way. We'll go Jimmy first. What were your thoughts on reading this part? Had you read any of this before?
I had not read any of these stories before because I got into it during the Fantagraphics run, right? The long-term original first series, and so I read those, but I had not ever read these because even back then, finding Albedo comics were impossible.
Right?
Like literally,
even if they weren't expensive, you couldn't find them.
They weren't around. I mean,
yeah.
Let's be honest. Albedo #2 had a 2,000 print run in the 80s. right? That means that you weren't finding it.
It didn't exist.
Right? Yeah, it just didn't exist because I mean, it wasn't like mass market, published and sent out to all the comic stores. Which obviously, there was probably 1,000 direct market comic stores back then. As opposed to the 3,000 that there are now. Yeah, that's an actual number. 3,000 direct market comic book stores in the United States. So let's say that meant 2 issues per store.
Yeah.
If they were scooped up, they were scooped up, right? And the back issue market was even more difficult.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, like that 2 per store is probably not even accurate because a lot of stores probably didn't order it.
No.
And
exactly,
a lot of them probably went to like smaller conventions or were sold directly from the art.
Exactly. Yeah. So. Yeah. So it was very, 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 very small print run. And then the Critters books actually were out there a little bit more, but it wasn't something that was really known. Like if you look at a cover of a Critters book, it doesn't say Usagi Yojimbo on it, right? So they're kind of a hidden gem. And finding them now is even difficult. I don't own a single Critters book because I just you don't see them in the wild that much. I've looked at a couple on eBay, and they're not expensive, but like paying $3.99 plus $5 shipping. It's like you try to find them, someplace somebody who's got multiple copies, that kind of thing. But so I read the Fantagraphics run, the original like 1 through 40 something issues, I think 38 issues
of actual Usagi.
Of the actual Usagi, which I hope that we get to after the scheduling challenges we've had with this panel.
Maybe in 2023.
Yeah, we'll get this one every 6 months.
We'll get through it, man. Yeah, it may not be this season, but hopefully in future seasons.
What about you, Alec? Had you read any of this before, and what were your initial thoughts?
Yeah, same thing. Like I had never read this earlier stuff, and honestly, like until some of the newer series, I wasn't picking it up regularly. But the part of the beauty of the series and the way he does it is, with pretty rare exception, if you pick up a random issue, you're just going to be able to read it and enjoy it.
Right.
There aren't many that have long, elaborate multi-issue storylines. There are things that reference back to each other here and there, so like you will get more out of it if you read every issue, but it does allow you to kind of just pick up an issue and read it and enjoy it, which I think is obviously impossible, if not, rare, if not impossible these days with comics, where everything is, if you find issue 7 or something that looks cool, like tough luck, issue 1 is probably $300 now. So
yeah,
hope you can find a trade.
Killing the children.
Yeah, and I think it's amazing achievement that there is a through line here, but it's not really. But the through line is him and his, as Gore is saying, his code of honor, and it's not really like the rest of it's just his adventure. He's the wandering Ronin, and he goes from town to town, and you don't really have a ton of. I mean, they set up a little bit of a kind of ongoing bad guy here that we don't really see in this volume, but
the pig nose guy,
the pig nose guy, and then the guy that like killed his original samurai that he was serving or whatever, the lord that he was serving before is kind of a off their villain, but otherwise it's all these stories are, you could read any one of these alone and enjoy
it is problem solution.
Yeah, it's pretty much all just self-contained, like you were saying, like you could just find a random issue, pick it up, and you have a full story there without reading anything else or knowing anything about it.
Well, let's get into some of these stories. We spent 15 minutes just talking about it in general. Let's get into some of this. Any stories you guys want to start with?
Start at the beginning. I mean, I think that's a good point because as we just discussed, I mean, the death of his master, which made him the Ronin, is the first story. The Goblin of Ichigara.
Yeah. And I do love that, like the introduction. I'm just gonna say, I love that the introduction is literally him.
Oh yeah.
The first panel is him wandering in, looking for a place to rest. Like, that he is just kind of on the move and covering the countryside on his own, and just looking for looking for shelter for the night. And I just think it's such a excellent introduction to what this character is going to be. At least to me. I really, like, after I had read it, I went back and looked at that panel. I was like, oh, that's just kind of a really great setup that you don't always get, like, from the first panel, I don't feel like, for a character like this.
Yeah. What do you mean by that? In terms of the setup?
I just feel like it sets the tone that he is, here's this lone figure, like, on the move, covering the countryside, and then this whole, in his first words are, "May I shelter here?" Like, this is a guy that doesn't have a home, that doesn't have, that he's just the traveling Ronin. He's, on his traveling the countryside. I don't know. For me, it just felt like very appropriate.
Yeah.
And speaking to what you said about how, like, I mean, for better or worse, because of the way, we were just talking about the format that he uses, he doesn't waste any time in his stories. No. And I mean, sometimes that is great because it's very snappy and you can read it quickly. I think there are some times where it gets a little clunky, where there's a little bit of too much exposition, or just like people kind of saying things that kind of advance the story faster than they should if it were. Yeah. But
people burden him with their issues really quickly.
Yeah.
Well, that would be like.
Let's consider the fact that he has 8 pages to work from. Right. First volume. Right. So yes, the stories are relatively short. I think in the Critters ones, or actually there's a little bit longer story in issue number 2. But yeah, in some of the Critters ones, like the later one, there's a much longer story when it kind of really goes into his backstory about homecoming. Where it talks about where his town and everything. But yeah, there's more detail involved in it. There is the obstacle, the mission, per se, that's happening at that time. But there's also the backstory with Mariko, his childhood love that that they're intertwining into that. So 8 pages is you got to get to the point there. You don't have the 24 pages to get to that.
Sure, and I've read plenty of 8-page stories that are total clunkers, and to be able to tell a really good 8-page story is not easy. So I'm not like trying to be super critical of that. I'm just kind of pointing out that there is not a wasted panel in any of these. No, they all function to tell the story.
Every panel tells the story.
So what about you, Louis? What do you think of this first opening and kind of just how these stories go, and this first opening story in particular, maybe?
As Alec, right? That's your name? Sorry.
Yep.
As Alec was saying, as you go through it, there is a lot of exposition, but there is only 8 pages, so you kind of got to get things out, let people know what's going on. I liked in the first one, with the art, she's telling the story about how her husband was there in the same battle, and then it goes back and you see it a bit, and then you see the cat man, you just assume that's her husband. But then as you go to find out that it's actually the
goblin. Yeah.
The goblin man. I want to say rhino because he looks like a rhino, but
no, that's the bounty hunter later on.
Oh wait, yeah, that is it. Okay, but yeah, Noah. I just like that he really paid attention to the art that much. Okay, you're gonna think.
But no, you're right. He does kind of look like a guy, like a rhino. He's got a horn in the center. But yeah, so it's not like cats and cats, right? So it's not very particular in that way. There's a number of different animals, which is another flavor of the actual book itself. But go ahead.
Right.
But I just really like that he kind of paid attention to those details. I know what you're thinking here, so let me turn on its head a little bit. And then especially the first one, it just really shows who he is. As JP was saying, he's a wandering Ronin. He needs shelter. And then at the end, after he defeats him, he's bury him. I'll move on from here. He's this was too much. He just pieces out immediately. That was too much trouble. He's not looking for trouble. He's just trying to go about his life. And all of that's done within 10 pages. I know who this is immediately.
Yeah,
and that's one of the big challenges of being a Ronin in that period of time is you're a swordsman and your job was to protect your master. And when your master is killed, number one, you have shame, cast upon you because you were in that person's service and you failed to protect him. And then you have no idea what to do, right? So in most cases, they became the wanderers, right? They had no place to call their own. And in some of the later issues in the main run is where there's, more of that, storyline that kind of goes after, like, where he goes after Lord Hikiji, because, the way he took out his master, was really, not honorable,
right.
which was a massive culture point, was doing things with honor.
Yeah, and I mean, right on the last page, you see that where the old woman kind of like asks him to kill her for her deceit, and he's like, "No, I'll call a priest."
Yeah.
And I mean, it shows that like he's not, his code of honor is above even like his own personal feelings, because like obviously he's upset or like angry with her for trying to kill him, but he kind of spares her life because he's not a murderer.
Yeah. It's like, if you want to take your life, then do it the proper way, which for them would be, I can never say that word, but with a priest, and do it properly. And it's like, I'm not doing it. It's like, there's no honor in that for him. So,
and one big thing I do want to touch on right now, because I feel like we're going to mention it a few times, is like Stan Sakai clearly is very passionate about his culture and his like the details of this era and the samurai and all that, and puts a lot of detail into that. And like even right here, oh geez,
sorry,
we're doing today's schedule.
Hey, it's time to do the Usagi Yojimbo show.
Yeah, this panel here where he's putting his sword away.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and you see him like pulling it across the top of the sheath, like that is how the traditional samurai.
Yeah, holding the sheath and pulling it across to find the opening.
Yeah,
so you don't cut your fingers off.
And and I'm sure he, so he just does little details like that all through this book that are just little nods to the culture that he is trying so to like genuinely
honor the heritage. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Sorry.
People trying to call me during the show. So, people never call me.
So first story, the Goblin of Adachigahara, is definitely fantastic to kind of introduce you to the character and his code, and what he wouldn't do to avenge his master,
Right.
and then also to show mercy rather than to dispatch someone who again, who is just a caricature of someone who is transformed in his ugliness,
right,
into his own personal demon, because he feels shame for what he did at a battle.
Yeah.
But Lone Rabbit and Child, I think, is the one that really kind of showcases Usagi in again his moral code, where he finds a young lord being hunted by samurai and ninja across the countryside with a single bodyguard, and then throwing himself in to help them with no expectation of payment or anything like that.
Right.
And helping out, and in turn they help him out as well.
Yeah, and once again, like you see right from the beginning, when you're talking about his code of honor and everything, he's pretty much like chilling, mind his own business, and this lady like busts in on him and tries to kill him, and like a lot of other characters in movies and stuff would have taken the opportunity to just not ask questions and take her out, because she is a threat to him at that moment, and he immediately says, "I have no desire to harm you or your child, your vassal child."
Yeah.
Yeah, he quickly diffuses it, and then almost immediately before he really knows what's going on, just
gets himself into a bigger trouble.
In the middle of protecting them, and
because he's just sitting there sleeping. Yeah. She walks in with the kid, right, and she needs to find a secure place for him to stay, and she sees him, and she's like, "Huh," and then just goes after him.
Yeah,
and he counters her move there, and starts talking to her like, "What the hell, lady?" Yeah. This panel here, where he grabs the sword, that's coming after him. And then starts to have the conversation with her. She's trying to find a secure place for him to stay the night, and starts explaining, that her lord Noriyuki, is trying to complete his heir by going to see the shogunate, shogun at the capital, but they're being hunted, and they're being hunted by, people who were sent to kill him by the Lord Hikiji, who his master lost the fight against. So he has there's no love lost in there. And then he starts to fight the invaders who are coming after him.
Yeah, I mean, there's two things there.
Yes, like geez, the way he just mows these people down.
Yeah,
like, oh,
right.
Okay, I did not expect it. All those people. He's like, go. Fine. And then you flip over the page, like, oh, you got all of them. Like, I thought it was gonna be maybe like a page or two with some battles, but then it was just like, oh, okay.
Yeah, he took care of all of them before she stepped outside.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, if you watch early samurai films, I mean, even if you watch I was talking to Unruly in the chat. If you watch the early Lone Wolf and Cub movies that they did, when you see a talented swordsman, he can cut through others. I mean, it's no different than if you're watching Star Wars and you're watching a seasoned Jedi, go up against someone who's not right. You're gonna cut that. You're gonna mow them down because you're gonna be able to get in. Swordplay is like that. It's quick and it is merciless.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, real swordplay is not. Like you see in the movies, and they fight for 30 minutes. That's not how real swordplay goes. I mean,
it's seconds. Everything is counted in seconds. It's counted in motions and movements. Yeah, it's fast.
Well, especially this type of sword fighting, which is about striking. It's not about. There aren't a lot of parries in this type of samurai style fighting. It's about killing your opponent before they kill you.
Yes. And it's whole body movements. It's not just the sword that's in use, right? It's elbows, it's legs, it's knees. It's you're using everything to your advantage. You're even using the sheath of your sword as a shield, for blocking maneuvers, and or strikes, just as a blunt strike. Yeah. So there's like I said, I mean, it's not surprising that he's able to do this in small panels where there's. They start on the attack, and then it's like boom, 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 and then they're dead. It's just it works that way here. Show that a little bit bigger, but so you see you see them start off, you see the strikes, and it's like they're going after it, and then they're just dead, and she rolls up to the door, and it's like, oh, it's over,
Yeah.
But hey, she's great backup. She totally is.
Totally great.
But I mean, I think it goes to show how much of a badass he is, because she is she is shown to be an accomplished swordsman.
Right.
And she could be a bodyguard at that point.
Right. And the fact that he so easily defeats her, and it's one of my favorite kind of tropes of characters is the quiet badass. The guy who is reluctant to fight, but when he does, no one can touch him.
Yeah.
I mean, I think
quiet badass.
Yeah. It's the almost a little bit like the first John Wick, where he's tough from the beginning because of what he's done, but he's like, I want to retire, I don't want to fight anymore, but he's pulled back in, and when he does, he's just like, okay, nothing can stop me now.
Yeah.
And to Unruly Simeon's comment, I love how we're experts on sword fighting now. Joke's on you. I pretend to be an expert in everything.
I mean, I got those two right there, so.
Yeah. I actually I took fencing classes.
So see there, we are.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I'm no expert, but I play one on TV. or
YouTube.
YouTube for that matter. But I got to be honest. So when I actually went to the school and was taking the classes on fencing, there were other classes going on where they were actually doing, and I cannot remember to save my life right now what those classes were, but they had the wooden. They had the wooden swords, and they were going after it. I was like, that's what I want to do next.
Yeah,
but it never just got back to it.
The bamboo swords or whatever, is that Kempo? Is that what they call it?
It's not. It wasn't. No, it wasn't Kempo, because Kempo is a form of karate. But it's the one where they use your weight against you. I cannot remember. If somebody knows in the chat, please speak up, because just my recall sucks. But anyway,
so I mean, I love how that there's two very consistent points of his character. One is his honor code, which he doesn't really waver from, and two is the fact that he's just a complete badass, and but he doesn't flex, right? He's not like what the
walking across the countryside as a badass,
right? The issue where like the big noisy guys come into the bar and are kind of picking on him.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't stand up and be like, he's not like, who you're talking to. He's not one of those guys, which I love. He's just kind of like, you just can't. I use my abilities when I have no other choice.
Yeah, I was looking for that. I love where
we can actually move to that, because I mean, like the central focus of the one with the bodyguard is just that he's helping them get across. What was it? Lone Rabbit and Child is that he's assisting a bodyguard get her ward home to the Shogun to see to claim his titles.
Yeah.
But
that whole sequence is the rowdy guys, and they're trying to intimidate him, and he's just basically ignoring them. And then the guy goes to attack him, and you see him like swing his sword, and then he sits back down. And they're like, "Wait, he didn't do anything." And then they're like, "Wait, the fly's cut in half." And that fly's cut in half.
It was more than one fly, though, right?
Yeah, it was more than one fly. It was like a bunch of them, and then you just see him running away. Protecting his teeth. As Alex said, he demonstrates that they really don't want a part of him.
And again, going back, that kind of showcases both of my points. The first one being the honor code, because he obviously very easily could have just killed that guy, and probably everyone.
No point to it. Yeah.
Probably everyone in the bar, but he's like I said, he's not a murderer. He is a samurai, and that means something, even though he has the ability to kill.
Yeah, right. Just because they're loudmouth braggarts, they're no threat to him, and they pose no threat to him because they're just drunks.
Yeah.
Yeah, Unruly says when you're truly badass, you ain't got to flex.
No. What I wanted to ask you guys about was like with his code, like how he doesn't really waver from it, but it seems like he doesn't mind like bending the rules a little bit, like when he's with the bounty hunter. He gets hired. He's like, "Well, I need a bodyguard."
He's got to work, right? He's got to make some money, right?
So he's not really.
His job was just to hang out.
Yeah, it's like, we can do this. You're hiring me for something.
Yeah, but okay. So when we talk about the code, the code is protect the innocent, right? Protect the innocent and take no life. That's not attacking you. Yeah. Right. There's a more elegant way to say that, and I can't really come to it. I did a drinking show right before this, so it's no excuse, but I'm just saying. But yeah, the point of that is that there's no unnecessary bloodshed.
Right.
So it's a code of honor, and he keeps it. Yes, while a bounty hunter in that time is probably one of the lower forms of swordsman that can be found. Taking a job to help somebody out, to make a little coin, to keep you on your travels, to keep a roof over your head and a meal in your belly. When you got nothing else, you got nothing else. But I love the bounty hunter story as much. I love that story as much as I love the last story. Where he gets him back. A little bit of polite revenge. Involved in that. Because he's not going to be taken advantage of.
That's probably one of the first times in a long time I actually laughed out loud while reading a comic.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Oh, he didn't pay his bill. It was 50. I was like, oh, I actually laughed.
What?
Speaking of laughing, I really appreciated, obviously because I'm an idiot who likes dad jokes. I really appreciated that one story that basically the whole point was just to get to the Gone with the Wind joke.
The horse thief?
Yeah.
Oh.
Was that the one it was?
Yeah, or like he goes after the bandits, right? And it's they stole the horse, and then he gets blamed for everything through the whole thing.
No. Hold on, let me find it.
So we had Village of
Fear. It's Village of Fear. Yeah.
Village of Fear.
Where he's going on this mission, blah blah blah, and at the end, you find out there's this character named Gone.
Yeah. I don't know, something about Gone with the Wind.
And he says, at the end, you died well, Gone. Now your spirit flies with the wind. And someone says, what did he say? I don't know. Something about Gone with the Wind. And like the whole story is just a setup to land that joke, which is just ridiculous because, like, obviously this takes place before that movie came out.
Right?
Well, yeah, everything about that story is just like the monster. Everything is just kind of like what? Like that one felt a little odd, and then it's just to set up the joke. It was the whole thing.
Aside from the first issue, the first issue, right? The original Albedo 2 entrance of the Goblin of Adachigahara. This is the first one that actually shows the Japanese mysticism.
Yeah.
In the pages, where he came up against this like weird cat thing, this monstrous thing, and he attacked it and it was gone. Just he's like, I've never seen anything, but there's blood on the blade, and he's like, so I definitely had to hit something. And then he goes into the village, and it's like, there's a beast that's been, murdering everybody in the village for a while, and he's wandering through, and this young lady, says, hey, I'm also new here, like I can help you out, I've got a place you can stay, blah blah blah. Which and then it's that. He sees the reflection in the blade. Where is it? Yeah, here. JP, hit me up.
Yeah, I was trying to find it. So yeah,
he sees the reflection in the blade, of the
actual
demon, right? So it's not obviously doesn't look like her. So it's kind of sets him on edge. And then there's an attack. But while he's wandering through the village, he runs across this guy named Gon, who's just kind of given up. He was part of the original group that went out after him. I'll show that here.
Yeah.
And he's just kind of like a wandering idiot at this point. He's like, oh, tonight it ends here. He's just kind of like the town kook, right? Or in Western he'd be like the town drunk, right? Who just saw too much and he keeps drinking to excess to forget about it. So then he sees that, it kind of sets him on edge, and then he figures out who it is, and she comes out after him, at nighttime, and then there's, obviously the battle and the sword play and such, and he slays the beast. But yeah, it's the first time, like I said, you really see that mysticism, that Japanese mysticism of that time frame, the 15th century.
But that is like a thread that goes throughout the series, and
it
like
does through the major series, which is great because it has to play through that, right? You can't not touch on that, if you're talking about that at that time.
Right.
So if you've seen 47 Ronin, right? If you've seen the movie, right, you see that in the comic. There was none of that mysticism that happened, like that the demon woman didn't happen in the comic, but in the film it did, and I thought that it kind of added an extra layer to the film, about where Keanu Reeves' character came from, and it kind of blended that in there, and that was a depth that it gave that made the movie better. It wouldn't have been so cursory as the story was. It was a good comic to read, and it was a short series, but it definitely added it to make it a little bit more cinematic.
Yeah, and from what I've read, he doesn't kind of overly lean on it, right? It's not just like, this is the easy fun thing to do stories with demons.
Right.
Like, there's a lot of stories of just like realistic stuff.
Oh, sure, but like no cultural heritage is without, that, whether it's dragons or magic or whatever, right? There's no cultural heritage you can go to anywhere around the world that doesn't have a little bit of magic in it.
Yeah, but to what I was saying earlier, it's just another kind of nod to the culture that Stan Sakai is trying to represent, and to your point, it would have been strange to just totally leave that out because it was such a big thing of the art of that time and stuff like that.
Yep.
Yeah, it's just something that's part of that world. Like, he didn't make a big deal of it. He's like, this is just what's happening right now.
Yeah, and Usagi or none of the people react like yes, it's odd, there's a monster, but like
it's not, oh my god, what is that thing? It's like, no, it's a demon. I've seen this before.
Yeah, that's the reaction. It's part of their world. It's not.
It is and it's not. Like they're still shocked by it. They're like they don't know what to do with it. Like, because they're like, there's a monster, right? They're not thinking, oh, this monster is this this young lady that showed up, right? None of the villagers are catching on to that. Otherwise, they would have had her burned at the stake earlier on.
I mean, I guess it's like almost like if you went out camping and you're like, oh, that's a bear over there.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm startable, but I know what a bear is, so it's not like it's free.
I also know that it's
Wendigo.
The Wendigo, the Wendigo comes out, and that's a little different.
Yeah.
I'd flip out that.
Strong difference between a bear and a Wendigo,
or even a Bigfoot.
Yeah.
Chupacabra. If you're camping in Mexico.
Mothman.
So, I don't know, like, the other thing I think he does a decent job of is, despite that these are all kind of one-offs in this, he also sets up a world and characters that he can use again pretty well, because we get the lady samurai in the second story. We get the bounty hunter, which their interaction is really fun.
Yeah.
He already appears twice in this.
Yeah, he appears twice in this. We get the blind pig, who clearly is going to appear again, who he befriends initially, only to find out that he's actually a criminal.
Basically Daredevil, though.
Yeah, it's basically Daredevil with a sword.
Nah, I wouldn't say that.
But his other senses are enhanced because he's blind.
Yes.
Sure.
I love that you can just carve a new nose and just be able to still smell, do everything.
He smells stuff. Yeah. It all smells like pine.
Well, yeah, he takes his his additional ability away from him, which would make him that better swordsman. But we don't really see after that, like in the main series, where he comes back and becomes kind of a nemesis. But yeah. It's just why is everything pine scented? It's like he makes him a wooden nose, and it's like, why is everything pine scented? Like it's just messing with his senses.
Yeah,
but it's a great thing.
I would say, so as I went through reading it, I was starting to think, I was like, this is reminding me of something. I don't know what it's reminding me of, and then I was like, oh, I know, The Mandalorian. Because like it's just one episode, you kind of get everything you get, and then there's a through line through all of them.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's weird. Why'd that remind me of it? And it's like, oh yeah, Star Wars is based on feudal Japan and Western, so it would make sense that this makes me think of Star Wars.
Star Wars is an indirect, complete ripoff of feudal Japan and Akira Kurosawa.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean there's no two ways about it. Yes,
but so is every Western.
Every
Western, and every Western is based off of Kurosawa. Kurosawa, I mean, they put in the chat earlier. Like everybody rips off Kurosawa at some point, right? Because it's just it is everything. It's it's the yin and the yang. It's everything. It's it's the scope of what you deal with. The good guys, the bad guys, the small towns, the large spaces, the open plains. Right, feudal Japan had that before. Obviously modernization. Yeah. But
the huge, the big badass who it also has the overcoming odds that you don't think you can. And
yeah, the difference between the guy who runs the town and the shogunate or the warlord or whatever the case is. I mean, there's obviously direct comparisons between all of them. But Frank Cho on his Instagram page was one of the first people to notice it. You know, like I noticed it when I was watching the first episode of The Mandalorian, you know, more actually the second episode of The Mandalorian. It was like, oh my God, The Mandalorian is Lone Wolf and Cub in space.
Yeah.
And we're like, bring it on. Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for doing this. We love it. Yeah. Because if you haven't read it, you must read it. It is phenomenal.
Yeah.
And you know, it bothers me when people criticize stuff like that because everything is a ripoff. What's your favorite thing? It's a ripoff of something else.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
there's
like
I forget what it is. I forget who said there's only 4 stories and everything else just someone trying to tell them over and over again. Something like that. I forget what it was.
Yeah, it's a writing diatribe. Yeah. So there's only 4 original ideas and everybody else is a ripoff of those ideas. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I can appreciate that. You know, I mean, it's an abstraction, sure, but you know.
But I mean, like,
I don't believe that, but you know,
yeah. But to say like, oh, Mandalorian isn't good because of that. Like, well, then do you hate the Magnificent Seven too? Because that's literally Seven Samurai.
Seven Samurai, yeah.
Literally, yeah, it's literally
Seven Samurai with Yul Brynner. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like not. It's at least the Mandalorian was like more subtle about it, where it's like, okay, we're taking this idea and we're going to tell our own story. Magnificent Seven, which is, you know, a pretty well-loved movie,
is a remake.
Pretty well-loved? Oh my God, yeah. I mean, like, how many times have they redone it?
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, the latest one with Denzel Washington and Chris Pratt was fantastic. Yeah. It really was. It was a great rendition of it.
I haven't actually seen the newer one, but yeah,
it's very good. Yeah.
It is directly, for lack of, it's a cover homage. I mean, it's a direct homage.
Yeah. Like seriously, like how many times? Like you can actually count how many times Yojimbo has been reproduced.
Oh yeah,
in modern society, right? I mean, the good, the bad, and the ugly, or I should say, I'm sorry, I apologize. Fistful of Dollars, right? The first of the Man with No Name trilogy, right? Fistful of Dollars is a complete direct ripoff of Yojimbo, right? Which is a samurai who goes into town and hooks up with one side and then finds out that they're not really that great, goes to the other side and plays the two against each other. It was like Lawless, I think, with what's his name? The kid from Transformers and the guy who played Bane. I can't remember their names, but yeah, it was like Tom Hardy and Shia LaBeouf. Yeah. Like it was the exact same thing, you know. It was, you know, there's like there's so many times that story gets told over and over again, right? But it's all Yojimbo.
Yeah,
and I mean to be fair to the creators of stuff like this, like at the time, Seven Samurai or Yojimbo wouldn't have really resonated with American audiences.
No. Well, because they would have had no reference, right?
Right. So someone came along and said, okay, I want to remake this for a Western audience. How do I do that? Because they're not going to care about samurai.
Yeah.
Right.
But if I take it and put it in the Old West, all of a sudden now it is.
And it fits.
There's a you know, something a touchstone.
They did it again with Lawless, you know, and they put it in the 30s, right? You know, in a small town. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Same thing, you know, so it's Tommy guns instead of, you know, horses and 6-shooters.
And then, like, at the end of the day, everyone's just trying to convey the same feel. Like, they all have their own messages they want to convey to everybody, but they're just using the structure of something that they see before or connected with them.
We've gotten way off topic.
We are way off topic, but that's okay.
So we haven't talked about the bounty hunter.
So let's talk about the bounty hunter.
The Mandalorian?
Yeah, about, right? This is Mandalorian time.
I can bring you in warm.
I can bring you in cold. Because he gives him his name. Because he's trying to get him to like be his partner initially.
Yeah.
And, I am Genosuke.
Genosuke, yeah.
Genosuke, yeah. And yeah, their interaction is definitely just a ton of fun.
Yeah, I mean he is a ball buster.
Yeah,
for sure.
Comes in there just kicking his ass, you know, just talking shit in the end. Yeah,
talking yin and yang, like he is the yin to Usagi's yang. Like he is the the opposite of him, where he's like loud and boisterous and funny and a ball buster and kind of like has a bigger head than he should probably, but he's clearly smart, right? He's clever.
Yeah. And his arrogance is astounding. I mean, walking up like, "Hey, can you pay for your meal? Mind your own business." I thought not. It's like he's reading him like a book as soon as he walks into the inn. He's like, "Hey, you're a samurai. Yeah, I can smell the blood on your blade still." It's like, "Hey, can you even pay for your own meal, man?" It's like it's rough, like Usagi's like, "What?" It's like, "I'm just trying to have a meal, man. Like, why are you coming at me?"
But like that's all part of his plan, like, right? He's playing him from the second he sees him, where he's like, "Oh, that guy's skilled. He's killed people, and he's poor.
Yeah,
that's exactly what I need."
Exactly. Yeah. Somebody desperate and really good.
Yeah. And I love how he works around. I'm no bounty hunter, and he's like, "Okay, hire you as a Yojimbo as his bodyguard." He's like, "Who would even more than a bounty hunter?" It's like
he knows he's not going to break his code.
So hire me as your bodyguard. Or I'll hire you as my bodyguard. Yeah, just walk in. Just make sure I don't get killed as I go attack this place to get this guy.
Well, I love they drop a hint of what's coming later, which is innkeeper, 2 bottles of sake on credit, of course. He drops it right off the bat that this is where it's headed. If you're paying attention,
yeah.
And I love it. He does all this to earn the 50 Rio, and then the bill at the end is 50 Rio. It's like he earned nothing.
But one of the things I enjoyed about this is the fake out, right? Where they go into the place, right? It turns into a massive tussle, and he's like, he's going after this one guy and his brother, and it turns out that the brother's holding the brother's holding the other brother like hostage, right? To show, to get him to fake out like that he's like, this is the guy that we're actually holding up, but the guy that they're holding up is in another room that Usagi finds, and then he goes into this and he finds Ichiro, and they wind up trying to kill the bounty hunter in the process, because once he gets loose, he goes after the bounty hunter from behind, where he actually gets lucky and smacks him in the head with his sheath, but after he gets cut. And then Usagi walks in and finds them both, finds all of them, finds him cut up, and takes out the second guy.
Yeah. No, it's really, I mean, all of it is well told, and
it is, yeah.
And
the reward finally came through. Here's your 50 Ru. Would I cheat a friend? Absolutely.
He's long gone by the time he finds it.
Yeah, he takes off, and then the guy comes out. "Hey, you owe me 50 Rio." He said he was you were paying his bill.
Before I get to mention this, Stan Sakai is also just like an absolute master of cartooning.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Like, he's motion. Up there. What's that?
Motion. Master of motion. Yeah.
Him, Jeff Smith, Sergio Aragonia is like, those guys know what they're doing when it comes to this type of cartooning art. Like and it looks so simple, but it is not easy to do.
No.
It's funny that you mentioned Sergio Aragones, because there was a passage, and I forget where it is. I think it might be in front of Summer Special. Because I thought it was in this, but it talks about the guy who was the publisher for Gru, not Sergio, but another person who was involved in it. So Stan Sakai started off actually as the inker for Gru. I'm sorry, the letterer. He was the letterer for Gru.
Yeah.
And and he was like, "Hey, I got this thing going on the side." They're like, "Okay, as long as it doesn't impact Gru." And they're like, it's this whole big, like, long monologue about how they're like, "Oh, please, Stan, don't leave," because they're like, "Gru's going to be terrible without you." But they were like very happy for him in what he accomplished. And, come to the end of the day, Usagi Yojimbo is a lot worth, or Albedo 2 is worth a lot more than Gru number 1.
Yeah.
Even Destroyer Duck number 5 or whatever it is.
Yeah, Destroyer Duck. Yeah, that's true.
But
go ahead.
I mean, that's another thing that you can look at, is that good letterers are not valued anymore.
No.
And you can spot the difference immediately if you're looking for it. Yeah. Especially when it comes to like the onomatopoeia stuff and the bigger like illustrative lettering stuff. But even in like doing good word bubbles is not easy, and some comics really fail at it, especially lately when it's all digital and like some of it just looks like absolute garbage. And just to think that like back then they were saying like, oh, we can't, they basically said like, we can't replace you as a letterer on this book because of the work you're doing.
Yeah
it's crazy.
And you're right about the onomatopoeia piece of that, right? And when you look at some of these, it's just when you read into it, like and that's a lost art, I think, in comics, is adding those effects, right? And it's been joked about with Batman 66, and the bam, pop, wow,
like, even like this.
Yeah. Throw them up there, JP.
It really like.
The screams,
If that was just a word bubble, that wouldn't have the same effect. You wouldn't get the urgency and the intensity from it if it just was a little word bubble that said "Ria." But because it turns it into part of the illustration, like all of a sudden it's, I don't know, you just read it differently.
Yeah. It's like with this panel, like you have the "ya," but then you have the other ones like yow, yip, like it's not as important. So it's just read completely differently.
Yeah. The smallness of the lettering makes it, like a quieter sound.
Or this one where it says slam and the letters are all it shows the emotion of the scene. Like obviously you see it in his face, but it just enhances like the anxiety and the anger because
the rippling around the lettering. Right, and you look at it says slam. It's not like hard lettering, right? It's like it's like rippling, to the lettering. So it gives it kind of a different look. And then, like here, some of the other things I really enjoyed was like like this, right? So this is a burning lantern, right here. So you get the crackle, right? So you hear the lantern burning, right? But this guy's dead. That's the important thing to note is that there's a little word bubble around the dead guy, right, with a skull, like a cat face skull, and the skull always matches the animal that that belongs to, right, because they show up every as people are dying throughout the series, and then the surprise that shows up here,
where it's outside
jumping out of nowhere, and it's like a gasp, it's like. No. Oh wow! Like what the hell's going on?
Yeah, it's something you don't like. Alex said earlier, it's something you don't notice until you notice it. Like
you take it for granted.
Yeah, a good letterer just flows into the story. A bad letterer sticks out like a sore thumb.
Yeah,
it's like in Hollywood stuntmen. Like you don't notice if they're doing their job. Like
right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, anything that like. And it good lettering and good word bubbles like shouldn't be the focus of your book unless you're doing something very experimental. It should just add to the story and supplement the actual words and the drawings on the page. But like when you screw it up, it's like, oh damn.
Yeah. Well, none of this is
like,
true.
Oh, that's not Sandra Bullock. That's a guy in a wig.
Yeah. It's very convoluted.
I mean, this is one thing I have to say about this is, like, the cat has things to say. Like the lettering, the art, the writing, all of it flows so well. It's just really top to bottom, really well done. I mean, it's just like I can't really think of things that like the only complaint is that I have about the whole thing was the one Alec had earlier is sometimes because of the nature of the stories, like. They shove a lot of exposition in, and it moves a little faster than you would want occasionally. But like otherwise,
again, so this is not full length comic. This is minor feature. You've got a lot to cover in a short period of time, and I think it's going to be interesting to see when we do move to volume 2 of this run. is when it starts off with the actual issue 1 in its full, in his own full length feature, comic.
You get full length issues. Yeah,
exactly. Like, now you're looking at 16 pages or 18 pages of content per issue, and how that's going to play out, because these are essentially short stories.
Yeah. And the thing that like really blows my mind about all of it is that he's been doing this book for over 30 years at this point, and still coming up with stories for him.
Yeah. 1987 was the start of this.
Yeah.
And he's still doing it with a brand new IDW series that is on fire, especially some of those variant covers.
Yeah. And it's been him the whole time, which is not unusual for Japanese creators to do the story the whole way, but it's unusual for us to have somebody.
Oh yeah, American creators, like look at Hellboy. Like, I'm not trying to dunk on Mike Mignola because he's one of my favorite creators, but like,
absolutely,
once he kind of hit the big time, he was like, why don't you guys draw this?
Yeah,
because that's a lot of work, and like I don't blame him. Like, he's doing other stuff. He's making movie deals.
Yeah, I appreciate the originals. I actually don't read any current Hellboy, but like I love these original Mike Mignola Hellboy.
Some of the best.
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic.
So Tacoma, you asked, and yes, we are reading the original run of Albedo and Critters, and the summer special is what this volume collects. That's from Fantagraphics. This is
the pre-volume 1. Pre-volume 1 stories.
Yeah, pre-volume 1.
What was it? There was what, 6 or 7 volumes in this, right?
There's 7 volumes that were pre-Dark Horse.
Yeah, so the Fantagraphics is really what we're talking about. Fantagraphics publishing of Usagi Yojimbo, Volume 1, and this is the Albedo 2, 3, and 4, and the Critters backup stories. Well, not backup stories, but the Critters anthology stories.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
what were you saying, Louis?
Something I wanted to bring up about the stories is how we were talking about how they're all really self-contained, but then when you get to Homecoming, you realize that all of these stories is him just traveling to get home to his father's grave.
To some degree, right? But he still has to leave home, right? So it's like home is a pit stop. But that really kind of becomes his. I don't want to say it's his origin, because I think issue 1 really kind of gives a better origin of Usagi in the main story, right, where he meets the master that actually makes him a swordsman. It gives you more backstory. It definitely colors in the details a bit more about where he is,
where he comes from.
And to your point, Louis, it does kind of give you this feeling. All of a sudden, you're like, oh, he's not wandering aimlessly.
Yeah,
like he has a purpose other than just like
he was wondering. He doesn't have a master. He's doing
whatever. So what do? We go home, right?
So much more purpose. To all those stories to me, because he's just trying to get there. Like, that's not the end goal, but that's where he's going right now.
It's not the end of the road. Yeah, and that's great that they left it as not the end of the road. He got there. It was a long story. It was a longer story. It was twice as long as the other stories. It is there, but then. The last story in this trade, though, and I want to say it's the last Critter story, is he kind of gets his revenge on the bounty hunter, but it also shows him as like he left home and he's moved on again, and then that's where you start picking up the main series.
Yeah, but again,
it easily could have been left off at the Homecoming. Like, that could have been the end of the whole thing if he wanted to. But
sure.
Why do that? There's more that he wants to do. And then I like how after it was kind of more serious, you do get the bounty hunter to bring some levity to everything that just happened.
Yeah. But again, like you can pick up those issues of Homecoming or this, and read them without knowing anything else and not be like, well, I don't know what's happening. But if you did read everything else, it just enriches what you're already reading.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, Gord, don't even start talking about Strangers in Paradise, or you'll never get White Whale and I off of this thing.
Someday we'll get there. All right. Over an hour.
I can tell you who's going to be on the Strangers in Paradise panel, JP, if you ever decide to hit that one.
Well, the bottom of this for sure.
Yeah. In John's Comics with Kids.
Make that guy read it finally.
Yeah.
Ouch.
So, a little over an hour. Final thoughts on this first volume. Louis, I'll let you go first. What are your final thoughts here?
I absolutely loved it. It's not something I usually read because I don't know. It's not. I have anything against feudal Japan. It's just never, been something that really popped in my mind. Like, oh, that's interesting. I probably would have never read this if it wasn't for like, hey, you needed somebody.
Yeah.
I'm really glad I did. But you think I'd like feudal Japan with my Star Wars crap, but no. But I really did enjoy it. I can't wait to read the next couple.
Nice. Alec.
Yeah, it's great fun, right? It's despite some of the heavier moments, like it's light. It's always got some humor in it. It's a pleasure to look at. It like I said, there are moments where it's a little clunky, but I'm not gonna like really say that that's a fault. It's just kind of part of the format. Yeah, I mean it's I would recommend this to anybody. Just I would say like with a caveat of being like this isn't necessarily something you're used to reading.
Yeah.
So like don't expect this grand story. Don't expect this huge like super cliffhangers at the end of every book. It's like this is just fun, well told, well cartooned, well made stories that like really don't have any competition in as far as I'm concerned with like what it does. It does it so well.
Yeah.
It almost reminds me of like the late night Cartoon Network, like the Toonami.
Yeah.
Like even with the art style, it made me think about that. Just like those animes like Samurai Jack and stuff. That's what it just reminded me of as I was reading.
Definitely. I mean, it's got that same kind of feel as like a Samurai Jack, the wandering Ronin again, trying to get somewhere. Jimmy, your final thoughts on this volume?
So this is my childhood. This is one of my most favorite things, in anthropologically speaking, right? Like I love feudal Japan. I love those stories. I mean, I even love The Last Samurai, right? Which is, arguably not a fantastic film, but I so enjoyed it as a film because of all that it speaks to. It's just kind of like it's a big thing for me.
Ken Watanabe's in it, right?
Oh yeah.
I can't go wrong with him.
No, you really can't. I mean, you take Tom Cruise out of it, he's just another white guy in Japan, right? But there's so much more story to it that's beyond the Tom Cruise aspects. But to this, it's like I said, it reminds me of my youth, right? So that I respect about it. To Alec's point, to White Whale's point, that it's clunky. It is clunky, right? It's a creator finding his character, right?
Yeah, for sure. And even if you look at the first couple issues, even in this volume, by the last couple issues, like you could already see that he's going like in the right direction. He's improving those mistakes and like he's getting better at what he's doing.
Yeah, by Homecoming, you're like, wow, he really has this nailed, right? He's got backstory, he's got depth, he's got character, he's got area, he knows where he's going, what he wants to do with the character by that point.
Yeah.
And the broader series as it goes on, really tells that. And I think the fact that, he was able to get that a whole series, a full run series, off of some short stories in here, which did not happen with the majority of the short stories that were in all these anthology books that Usagi showed up in. So that I think that really speaks to it. But beyond that, the fact that after the Fantagraphics comics went under, right? So it wasn't they ended the series. The publisher died, right? It was gone. And Dark Horse Comics, he was able to own the property, take it to Dark Horse Comics, and then keep 100+ issues. Yeah. Right. And when you think about that, right, that's what, a good 10 years, I want to say. It was like 120, 150 issues. That's 10 years on that one character.
Yeah, there's a lot.
For that to finally end, and then he moved to IDW, right? And the IDW series has been fantastic. The Peach Momoko covers on that IDW series are amazing. Like that really speaks to Peach Momoko's capabilities, right? When she starts doing that kind of work, that's in that realm of what she's doing.
And Usagi is a character that I think fits her style because it's a little more cartoony, a little more, that like.
It does and it doesn't, because she has a much more kabuki-esque style of work, that's more Japanese painting, right? That orchestral paintings that she does that don't always play well into the rest of the rest of the comic industry. Yeah, right. Like my favorite Peach Momoko cover outside of the Usagi one is actually a Venom cover that she did, where it's Venom against Null, and they're like very kabuki style, like demons coming after each other. I thought that was brilliant the way she did it, and it's like the least favorited, one that she's done. But as a story, I think it's fun. I think it's got a strong narrative to it, and I think that it's enjoyable for anybody walking into it at any level. It's kid friendly, it's adult friendly, it's adolescent friendly, and it teaches you as well. So I think that it really rounds on all corners.
And issue 20 is a spec book now because it isn't everything.
Issue 20 of Usagi?
Of the new series, the one that just came out.
The current series?
Yeah, because it's got a female character. So,
so there's a female.
It's like the next Jenica, clearly.
Okay. Of course it is. I will say that for me, like, I really, really enjoyed this. Like you guys have been saying, it's a lot of fun. And it strikes me, because of the nature of the way the storytelling, this strikes me as something that, like, if you had a bunch of volumes, you could just, like, pick up and read any volume. Like, if you had all the volumes sitting here on your shelf, you could pick up any of them, like, I just want to read this one.
It's just fun,
You don't have to open up at the beginning. You just
open up to any issue in that volume.
Yeah. And you could just read for as long as you want or as short as you want. You'd get enjoyment out of it. I just really like that it's not I got to commit to the next 100. I mean, we're going to read more of this, but like, you don't have to commit to reading the Dark Horse run. Like, you could we could pick and choose different volumes from any of it, I think, and we could have fun doing this. And like, I like that nature of it. We'll probably go in order at least for a little ways, but I just think that that's kind of a fun way to go about it. I want to thank you guys for hanging out with me. I know this has been an adventure to get this done. So I appreciate
we did it.
We did it.
We actually
got it in. Hopefully we'll be able to get it. We'll get back to this sooner rather than later.
I mean, you can say a lot of things about us, but we are persistent.
Yeah, we did persist.
Yeah, no, Gore's absolutely right. Lone Wolf and Cub, phenomenal.
Yeah. So, Louis, I know this is your premiere on YouTube. Are you thinking about actually doing some videos? Are you gonna just hang out with us for a little while longer?
I'll keep practicing with you guys.
There you go.
We'll see what happens.
All right, Alec, you got anything coming up on your channel? No. You just don't do videos anymore. No. Well,
in fact, I think next week's book club, I'm pretty sure it's John's month.
Is it?
I could be wrong. So either this Wednesday or a month from this Wednesday, I'll have a live stream on my channel.
Nice. Someone who is a little more active, Jimmy, what do you got coming up on your channel?
So we did Cocktails and Comics tonight with Kavi. So that's up on the channel. I have a lot of unboxings and haul videos that are just in the pipeline that are coming through. So those are always there for entertainment's sake. The comic book history. I'm going to get back to the What Do You Hunt? Right, but it's going to be more Tales from the Hunt, right? So, like we talked about, we talked with people about what they were hunting this year and in general, and then so we're going to be getting back to people midway through the year and finding out, like what they've found, what they discovered, and some stories about that.
Nice.
That'll be upcoming, and just some other random stuff. So I'm just trying to make sure that there's always a Thursday show.
There you go. Nice. So what I got coming up, the next round, well, I got my usual weekend stuff. The look back, I should be around this weekend. So look back show will be this weekend. I will be doing probably Cash or Trash, my whatever show, probably on Sunday. We're not doing D&D this week because it's the holiday. But so I'll have my usual weekend stuff. Next week, indie show, we are talking volumes 1 and 2 of Southern Bastards.
Nice.
I got No Good, Lady Fantastic, and I don't remember. I don't remember who the other person is, which makes me feel bad, but I can't remember. Here, I'll look real quick. But hanging out with me doing that. So looking forward to that. I want to thank everybody for hanging out, and yeah, we'll catch you next time.
Oh, I have an auction on Saturday, 1:00 on Whatnot app.
Yeah, Whatnot is the new hotness.
It's a new thing. I hadn't heard of it till like less than a week ago, and now it's like everybody and their brothers on Whatnot. Whatever
Inferno Comic Stores. Inferno_comic_stores. That's the the channel to check out.
There you go. All right, later, everybody.